Hi everyone, welcome back to the lockdown series. Today I'm going to be talking with bridal gown designer Yemi Kosibah. Welcome back guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm now going to pin the topic, which is bridal gown design with Yemi Kosibah. God, it's a hot day today guys, I'm glad it's starting to cool down because I've been melting. Okay, fantastic. So this is the next in the series of the lockdown series. And we are going to be joined by bridal gown designer Yemi Kosibah. Hi Yemi, I'm just going to let you into the chat. Waiting for Yemi to join. Fantastic.
Hi there,
Hi,
happy to be on.
Hi Yemi, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you very much, happy to be here.
Fantastic. I'm so happy that you're joining us on the channel. So Yemi, we've met virtually, but I'm Laudine and I'm the founder of showthebride.com and Bridal Box, which is a bridal beauty gift box, and essentially it's all designed around brides. And I really wanted to invite you onto this Instagram live because my target audience is brides. We've got a lot of brides to be who are struggling with lockdown, who just want some advice, and also are just so interested and inspired when they see social media posts from other bridal suppliers, bridal gown designers. So I'm so honored that you've joined us today.
I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to answer as many questions for your bride and hopefully to reassure them. Love is still alive, you know, it's all good. But yeah, I hope we can sort of leave everybody happy.
Okay, fantastic. Perfect. And we've got quite a few people joining already. So welcome everybody. As you can see, we've got Yemi Kosibah on today. Very happy to have Yemi join us on the channel. So Yemi is a celebrated bridal designer. I'm gonna let Yemi introduce himself, but I just want to say thank you to Yemi for joining. So Yemi, if I hand over to you just to introduce yourself before I start going in with some of the questions that I've got for you.
Okay, so my name is Yemi Akinsoye and I'm the designer behind the Kosibah brand. Kosibah was created in 1991 in London, England. 16 when I relocated to New York, but I have an atelier in London. And up until the lockdown, every 8 weeks, like clockwork, I was back in my London studio for about 10 days. And, you know, I specialize in bridal and evening wear. And my signature or my unique selling proposition is the way I'm able to enhance the figures of my clients through my use of corsetry and structured bodices and just lots of techniques I've learned over the years because I've always dealt with individual clients. And I've, you know, after dealing with hundreds and hundreds of bodies, I've honed down some techniques through trial and error that just help me to enhance the figure of whomever is in front of me, regardless of size, height, ethnic origin, or whatever. That's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Yemi. Okay, perfect. I'm just pinning our topic so that people know what we're talking about. Just 2 seconds. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, I've just added what the topic is there. So we're doing bridal design with Yemi Kosibah. Fantastic. So Yemi, I guess where I'm going to start is just, you know, how would you describe your bridal style?
Okay, so I would say what's like classic, timeless, sort of come to mind, but that doesn't mean they're boring. I just think to myself, I take a lot of time and effort to create these couture gowns. My clients pay a lot of money for these dresses, and I'd rather they are dresses that they look at in years to come without cringing too much and think, oh my God, that is such of that particular time, you know, where you can pin it down. I want you to be able to look at your dress in years to come and still think, oh my God, I don't regret that dress. Or you don't have to think, what was I thinking? Of course, you put some nods to trends, to, you know, fashion trends, but it's just the attention to the detail, to make sure it fits the person in front of me. Those are the things I have in mind rather than trying to just be like super on trend. but there is the overarching line, which is just the figure enhancement of my gowns. That's
Yeah,
my
that's a really
pure
good point.
focus.
That's a really good point, actually, Yemi, because you could pick a dress that's very on trend, and then in a couple of years' time, it's now suddenly become dated. So, yeah, that's a really good point. And Yemi, I mean, how would you describe the Kosibah experience? So, what does a
Oh,
bride get from you?
all right. Now, you see, unfortunately, right, like the pre-COVID world and like the post-COVID world.
Mhm.
So what used to happen in the pre-COVID world, I'm still going to have to figure out how to make that happen post-COVID in terms of close contact or whatever. But I think the experience of having a dress made is one of the most important parts of what I have to offer. So it's not just wearing the dress the 8 hours or so of the wedding day. It's the whole process, coming to see me in the first place. I try to make my brides feel as comfortable as possible. I ask lots of questions. Even if the bride knows exactly what she wants or she doesn't know, it doesn't matter. I just get as much information as she can give me. And what I'm trying to do is to try to come up with ideas that would suit the person in front of me, i.e. her figure, but also where she's getting married, what time of year, what time of day, what religious or traditional elements are going to go into the wedding. I take all that into consideration and come up with, I also show them, I come up with a design, but I also show my past work, both pictures, because it's important for a bride, regardless of whether you come to me or any designer, it's good for you to see the body of their work. It's easier nowadays because you can go through a designer's Instagram page, but not everything is there. So when you go to see the designer, it's good to see their body of work. And what I'm trying to pass on to my clients is that you see all these different brides you see here. That's what they wanted. It might not be to your taste, but that's what they wanted, and it fits them. And you can see by the expression on their faces that they feel and look at their best. That's what they tell me. And also, it's in the right setting, because I used to go to a lot of my clients' wedding. We still have to figure that out, with the way the situation is now. But I do take pictures, and I like for my clients to see the dresses in the setting, the church, the reception. It's just good to see the dress in its setting so that you know that when you are planning your dress, you want to have all that in mind. And then there's the discussion of fabrics, embellishments. I like my brides to have some ownership in the design. I'm not pushing. I advise. I show design sketches, so you might like the top of something, the bottom of something, and then with all the ideas you've told me, I also ask what parts of your body you want to enhance, what parts of your body you have sort of issues with. I just need all that information to create a design that is unique to you, that ticks all your boxes. And then there's the first fitting, which is the dress is like a prototype in a fabric called calico or muslin, or a fabric that will be slightly similar to your design. Because, for example, if you're having a structured gown or if you're having a really slinky gown, the prototype fabric is slightly different. It just mimics the dress as closely as possible. But what that does is it enables me to see certain fitting issues that will only come up when the dress is on a human body. I can't understand where, I mean, I admire people that do that, where you have a dress that, is just made and the person tries it on and it's great. I'm like, well, you were lucky. I'm just too much of a control freak. And the way I was trained in old school couture, you must do a toile. If you're going to do proper couture and there's no toile, then that's like a red flag. So when the client tries this on, there's usually something to do, even if it's just, okay, we say, for example, if there's a cleavage, is it high enough? Is it too high? Is it too low? Do we need to change anything? And because I'm doing corsetry, I'm squeezing flesh. The flesh has to go somewhere. So if there's a bit of flesh hanging over it, then I have to measure, okay, we've got to cover this up so that, I get my client to lean forward a bit. If the breast is spilling out, then I know, okay, it needs to have more coverage. But, little things like that, get them to sit down because I've got bones that touch the top of the thigh. but they mustn't touch the thigh when you're sat, because if it does, it has like a cantilever if it just pushes everything up. So if it goes down more than I need it to be, I actually draw a pencil line. So it's very touchy feely. That we have to find ways of doing this with, you know, while we're all being super careful. But this reassures the bride, because up until then it's been a sketch. There's a lot of trust that goes into this. This dress does not exist. You might see something similar, but the exact dress I have designed for you does not exist. So when you try the toile on, it just makes it more real for the brides. For me, I am checking out fitting issues and anything that isn't as I want it to be. I get my pencil and mark parts that need to go in. I pin, I almost sculpt it onto the body of my client. And another thing is I tell them to come with shoes approximate to the height they're going to wear on that day, because I want the dress to touch the floor, but they're not going to trip over it and they don't have to look down. But also it's not like we've run out of fabric. So it's really super, super important. You need to think of the height of the heels, and you bring it to all the fittings you come to.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, so all the little elements that came up during that fitting, I then go back to my pattern and I amend it on my pattern and I make another toile. Now, a question the brides will ask me is that, oh, is this sort of going into my dress? Is this part of my dress? And I say, no, this is literally a 3-dimensional pattern that once we do the fitting, when I first started my business, I just used to toss it away until I realized how, you know, that's just not practical. So we recycle it. And then I do another toile, which the client tries on, and 99.9% it fits perfectly. That's when I then photograph that, because I also send pictures to her so she can see. The first one, I call it a technical fitting. And as I said, 99%, the second fitting is perfect. That's when I actually go to my pattern and create the pattern for the actual dress, which has more elements to it. So even doing the pattern for the actual dress is slightly different from the pattern for the toile. I'm saying all this because people need to realize how much work goes into a couture gown. And this also helps with the experience of the bride to know that I can see how my dress is developing. Nothing is left to chance. There are no surprises at all. Sometimes if we have a lot of appliques or embroideries, embellishments that were made during the 12 fitting, actually, especially the second one, when all the fitting issues have been done, sometimes I pin that on so the bride can actually see the reality of the gown as it's coming along. And then, you know, the final fitting, usually that just goes great. And then if there are any tweaks that have to be done, that's still able to be done. So I also time it, because people ask me how long does it take, and you know, I would say about 6 to 9 months ideally. I mean, I can do it at a shorter time, but really you need as much time as possible so that there's no panic and there's no, you know, so I'm working with lots of brides at the same time, but I like to feel each bride, I want each bride to feel they are the only ones I'm dealing with, and I really try my best to make my brides feel that way. But in order for that to happen, I have to build the time in. So as I said, there's no rush or panic. But the Kosibah experience is just one of comfort, one of ownership of your gown. And what I just tell my brides is that I have as much what's the word, you know, I'm into your dress as much as you are, you know, so don't worry about that. This is my reputation, this is the hard work. So it's more in my interest and your interest for the dress to come out perfectly. So just keep that at the back of, keep that at the back of your mind. I'm not just going to, you know, charge you all this money and then show you some dress and then say goodbye. No, I'm really, really invested in my dresses, and that's why I love to take the photographs when it's in the right setting. You have your makeup, you have your hair. It gives me so much pleasure. I mean, I've been doing this it's going to be 30 years next year, but I still feel the passion, the happiness, this was worth all the trouble when I see my brides on that day. It just makes it all so worthwhile.
I mean, I think the fact that you even consider what will the gown fit like when you sit down is such a good point, because I think just even when I think about like some of our sort of traditional African weddings, you know, sometimes you might go and get a dress made. It won't be a couture dress, but it's true. You just kind of go with a design, and then
Yeah,
sometimes actually like you find, oh, actually now I'm sitting down, it's a
yeah,
bit uncomfortable, and you don't
yeah,
think about those aspects. So that's so good that actually you go through all the motions with the bride.
absolutely.
You're sitting, standing. That's such a good point, Yemi.
Yes, yes. We
Perfect.
actually practice dancing, lifting your arms up. So there are lots
Wow.
of things we have, you know, because something might look really perfect, but then you find you can't move your arms. Well, what's the point in that? But I try and make it as perfect as possible, but with you know, for you to be able to maneuver. It's important for the dress to be comfortable. Even though I'm taking, you know, I'm really squeezing you, and you're wearing the corset, there's no doubt about that, but I'm
Yeah.
taking that around your waist. There's no reason why your diaphragm or your bust should feel like trussed up like a chicken. So all that we sort out during the 12 fittings. As I said, I'm a bit of a control freak, but I just want perfection is what's at the back of my mind. That's my driving force. Perfection, figure enhancement. Those are the two words of
I
Kosibah.
think that's so good. And I was going to ask you, you know, how involved are the brides in the process? But it sounds like the bride is very involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I am the expert. I have the experience, but it's your dress, you know. So I just don't like, and I tried right from the first meeting. I tried to reassure brides because some of them are a bit intimidated, and maybe they've been to other shops where they're made to feel as if the designer is doing them a favor, or you know, I just don't feel that way. I mean, my dresses are not cheap, but I'm very approachable, and I try to make my brides feel as comfortable as possible and know that they have ownership in the dress. You know, all designs are almost like signed off, you know. And when I choose fabrics, I nowadays with video and photographs, if you can't come with me to check the fabrics out, I send photographs, I send videos. So they, you know, at no point do you not know what's going on. You know what's going
Mm.
on, and if there's anything that props up, I'm like, okay, let's discuss this, you know, so that there are no surprises, really.
And Yemi, I guess, how has COVID, I guess, impacted or made you have to change your process? How are you finding it?
Yeah, so it's still a work in progress. And what it has made me, two things. The first thing is my process moving forward with couture. But the second thing made me realize that, you know, the ability to just hop on a plane, fly somewhere, or even hop in a car to go to a different city, or, you know, just to travel can be curtailed at any time. This is a lesson to be learned. For years, I've been thinking of doing a ready-to-wear line, but because of my, I just need everything to be perfect, and sometimes I think nobody can do it like I can do it. But that's not true. I just have to be super careful who I choose. But I have finally found the perfect production company that is helping me, and I'm actually launching a line for bridal market. New York Bridal Fashion Week is going to be launched, and it's going to be all virtual. But
Oh,
yeah,
amazing.
COVID has forced me to bite the bullet, and it's called the Asheyori collection, which in Yoruba means, well, I don't know that it means ad- overcoming adversity, you know. And this
Amazing.
whole COVID thing, you know, could have made some people give up or despair, but uh, out of a situation that is not ideal, something positive has come out. And all the dresses are going to be named what I call care dresses. Care in Yoruba means to care for. So they'll be like Chino care, Ban
Okay.
care, and Ron care. Because, you know, though you know, I live in the US and I have British nationality, but I am Nigerian, and I want to bring that into it, especially in this time of the importance of, you know, black businesses. One has
Yeah.
to put your money, you know, put your mouth where your money is, and show representation. So that's my little way of bringing my heritage into it, even though the dresses are, you know, just pure classic. white ivory bridal gowns. They're not like Afrocentric at all, but the names are Yoruba care names.
And
And
actually, I
then
think
in
you've done
terms
that
of
throughout,
before
haven't
before I forget, in terms of the
you?
couture, so what I'm now doing is a virtual consultation service. It's through Zoom, and I'm able to do what I would normally do when a client comes to me. But the great thing is that the client is in her house, because nowadays, for you to go to a shop, you probably would be able to bring one more person. There's a limitation of how many people you can bring into a bridal salon, but you can have your friends around you while you're having a consultation, although I'm dealing with you. When I say you, I mean my client. And before then, there are certain things you would have to get in place, one of them being like a tripod, because part of it will be taking your measurements or having somebody take your measurements. Now, the measurements are the most important aspect of having a dress made, and once you get the measurements wrong, it's like a domino effect. So normally I take the measurements myself, but if I can't, the nearest best thing is to have someone do it. But we need the tripod because at some point you're going to have to step slightly backward so I can see your whole body and then instruct the person what to do. So I'd ask you to get a tripod. I'd ask you to get measuring tape, and then I would have sent you a measuring chart with a figure. So it has it has a figure of a person, and it's explained exactly where to take the measurement. So with the paper in front of you and you're writing it down, and I'm also directing you, that's the way I think we can overcome the consultation part of it. And I ask all the questions, and I also come up with a design. Now, another reason I'm doing this is because the days of going to play dress up in bridal shops are gone, because the reality is that when you try on a dress, the bridal shop has to they have to set it aside. They've got to steam clean it. They've got to quarantine it for about 24 to 72 hours. So they don't really want people just coming on and trying loads of dresses. And also as a bride, I would feel that you wouldn't want to go to a shop where there've been lots of people there. You just want to go in and out as quickly as possible. So what I'm trying to do is to give as much information so you go almost like readily armed. So this service is not necessarily for you to come to me. You can come to me, which is great because I charge for it. And if you do come to me and I make the design, the amount I've charged you comes away from the price of the dress. But this is literally to give brides as much information as they can. So they have, I help them to collate their ideas, and then just narrow it down. We talk about fabrics because again, some people don't know, chiffon, zibeline, people just shout all these names and the brides don't know, and sometimes they feel they don't want to ask, but we go through all that. So by the time you go to a bridal shop, wherever is local to you, you have all that information. You have an idea of the dress you want. You actually, because I'll do a sketch, you can actually say, okay, I want the nearest thing you have to this. It's just an efficient way to do it. And that's a service that I'm offering. And if COVID hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't. I had thought about it, but I think about lots of things and don't do anything about it, I'm afraid. But this just made it happen. And so to answer your question, those are the two main things that came about through COVID. And I'd also been making masks because I was fortunate enough to have my equipment in my home. Some people had fantastic premises elsewhere, and New York's lockdown was super, super strict. People had no access to their production facilities. But because I had it at home, I never really stopped working because I have some brides. I have some brides in the UK, and I was making the dress for that bride. Normally, I would have given it to somebody to do, but I had to do it myself, which is a great thing because what people have to understand is that with every dress I design, even though I have design assistants, I have machinists, I can make it from scratch. And this bride getting married in the UK next month, I actually made her dress from start to finish. So she's one of the extremely lucky ones that you know, my hands did everything. But I did the mask because I didn't want to be bored, and I partnered with a charity called the Music Kitchen. So for each mask I make a matching mask, almost like Tommy shoes. And I didn't want to go down the route of, oh, you get a percentage, goes to charity. No, I'd rather do something super real. So for each mask I make another mask that goes to charity. It goes to this charity, then give it to shelters, normally women's shelters, you know, either for domestic violence or whatever, here in New York. And the masks are really only within the US because I don't charge for shipping. And when it comes to sending them abroad, it just becomes ridiculous in terms of
I was
cost.
going to ask you, I mean, how does the bride that's in the UK, I mean, how does she get her dress? Is that, do you ship that, are you flying back
Yeah,
to
so
them?
normally I wouldn't, this one, unfortunately, I'm going to have to ship because the US is banned from the UK and the UK is banned from the US. So it's almost like a mutual destruction situation. Normally, I would have gone down to do what I call the final try-on, and I would have been there to dress my bride. But unfortunately, this is not able to happen. But I'm really super happy for her because, again, what brides have to understand is that at the end of the day, you're getting married to the love of your life. And as long as the people that are super, super close to you and, you know, have all the love for you are able to be there, no matter how many people there are, it's still okay to go ahead and get married, you know, because all the extra bits, this has taught us, as beautiful as it is, some of it is not really necessary. And the great thing is, with a smaller wedding, you can have even more of the flowers, the beauty, because you're doing it on a smaller scale. If you had loads of guests, it's almost diluted, but you can have amazing decor, beautiful stationery, and you're going to, all you just have to make sure that you have a fantastic photographer and you have a fantastic videographer, because the people that are not able to be there, you can then send the videos out, or even if you want to do the Zoom thing, because Zoom has gone past, you know, they're now wedding planners for Zoom, you know, and you can have it. Yeah, you can do all that, but you can invite people in, or even if it's a video you're going to send a task for. But the point I'm trying to make is that you don't have to compromise on the details of your dress and the ambience of your wedding. If it's a micro wedding, it's a smaller wedding, you can actually have more because it's on a smaller scale.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was speaking to a bride recently, a friend of mine actually, who got married in the US, and their family basically watched them get married via Zoom. And they had a lovely wedding in a back garden, and it honestly looks like a professional photo shoot. It just looks stunning.
Yeah.
And in some ways, she was saying, you know, they actually felt more part of the wedding because they were front row. There was no one else to kind of be in front of them or interrupt or anything like that. So they had a great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to go back to, so we were talking about the names of some of the dresses that are going to be in your new collection. And actually, I mean, I've followed you for a number of years, but I actually for ages thought that your surname was Kosibah. And then I did a little bit of research, and I saw that actually Kosibah, you've named Kosibah after, is it a little girl born on a Sunday?
Yes, named after my mother. It's named after my mother. So yes, my mother. Now I have to explain to you that when I decided to go into fashion, I was 16 when I told my parents, and they were totally supportive. And my dad just, both of them just said, you have to make sure you do it to the best of your ability. We're not going to say you have to go and do medicine, you have to go and do law. If you're going to do fashion, just make sure you're successful. So I was really fortunate that I started very young, and I didn't have to, you know, go down one path and then come back to my true love. I started my true love at a young age, made all my mistakes way then when it wasn't so important. So, you know, I was really great. But because my mom was so supportive, and I started into fashion because I could draw. I couldn't sew. We didn't have this. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a doctor. We didn't have a sewing machine in the house, but I could draw. And my mom would take my drawings and she would take them to work and show all her friends, this is what Yemi has done. And they're like, oh, how beautiful. So when I chose the name, again, at the age 16, 17, because I had to do a fashion show during my lower sixth year, and I had to come up with a name. This was in Nigeria. And I thought, I don't want to use my name, Yemi Akinsoye, because I want to keep a bit of myself private. Now, I was 16, 17 when I came up with that idea. But I want a name that sounds African, but can also cross over. And who's the person that has been my champion, almost to an embarrassing level? That's my mom. Now, my mom, even though she was born in Lagos, she speaks Yoruba, but originally she's from Dahomey, which is called Republic of Benin. It's next to Togo, next to Togo. And there, just like in Ghana, they have a name given to a child depending on what day the child is born. So my mom was born on a Sunday, and her name was Kosibah, spelled with a C and an A at the end. But being Nigerian, I would feel uncomfortable calling my mother's name. So I changed the spelling to a K, and I put an H at the end to help with the pronunciation. And also, I felt that way. It sounds African, but, later on, by God's grace, if I'm abroad, it's not too frightening, or, it's just a name that will cross over. So yeah, it's Kosibah. A lot of people don't know my name's Yemi Akinsoye. They call me Yemi Kosibah, which I'm happy with, because I want to be able to almost be like a ninja, just come in when I want to, slide out, let my dresses speak for themselves. It's not about me, it's about my dresses. I realize I am my brand. I'm not stupid, I know that, but I think the brand is stronger than me.
I think it's amazing, because I definitely think your dresses speak for themselves, and I think there is that sort of element of intrigue. I think people think, oh, I want to meet the designer behind the dress, and they want to know what you're like. But I completely get the need to separate and have your brand separate to personal life. But I love the name. I mean, so I'm from Ghana. I know my mum is watching this as well, so we are both Sunday borns.
Okay, so what's the Sunday name for? What's the Sunday name for?
It's Akusia.
Akusia, okay.
Yeah, so we're both Akusia. I know my mum's probably thinking you're not pronouncing it correctly, but that is how we pronounce it in the UK. So
right. Yeah.
Brilliant. So I think it's so great that your mum was one of your biggest champions as well. I think that's amazing. It's so important for us to have people in our lives that push us. And you've
lucky.
kind of already answered my next question, because I was going to ask, why did you want to become a bridal designer? So I know you talked about you're really good at drawing, but why bridal?
Okay, now the way I trained in a school called the Paris Academy School of Fashion in Oxford Street, right in front of London College of Fashion. And there they taught us old school couture. It's very labor intensive. You have to do a body block for each client, and then you have to do the tours like I explained to you. You know, the pattern drafting, very, very labor intensive. When I started my business in 1991, there was a recession. The government was encouraging people to be self-employed. So, I learned about marketing, I learned about taxation, I learned about all the what you call boring stuff, but it really helped me, because there they told us, regardless of how talented you are, if you don't run your business as a business, you may go bankrupt. I mean, someone like John Galliano, he's he's like a creative genius, but due to whatever reason, he went bankrupt. So it can happen. So when I opened my doors, and I also studied menswear, a lot of people don't know I did that. I did women's wear and menswear. And like most people that start a business, you say yes to whoever comes in, because, you've got to pay your bills and everything. Very quickly, I realized I hated doing menswear. I hated it with a passion, because it was just so boring to me. I like dresses that are beautiful. I like dresses that are wearable. My forte is not avant-garde. I leave that to other people. I want classic, beautifully made dresses or outfits. And I feel if I added what I am going to design that is slightly different from menswear, it will just look like costume. In fact, I won't even respect whoever's going to wear it. Like, what are you wearing? So, and with making a suit was just so boring. So I just said, I'm only going to do what's going to give me joy. I don't want to be sitting here really gritting my teeth and, being really super annoyed and irritated. So I stopped doing menswear. The same thing with casual wear. I just thought you might as well just go to Zara, Zara wasn't, when I started, there was nothing like that. Just to show how old I am. You can just go to any shop and buy something. So it's just not viable from a price point of view. And my designs just lent themselves to special occasion, to glamour, to beauty. So in a natural sort of way, in an organic way, it went into bridal wear. So it was almost like a business, but also a passion thing.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
And Yemi, you mentioned earlier that right now you're in New York, so I think it's about 2 o'clock ish New
Yeah,
York
yeah,
time.
that's right.
Um,
Yes.
so, I mean, how do you cope with traveling between the two? So, New York and London. I mean, how are you dealing with things like jet lag, multiple clients?
Well, I was very lucky. Even though I moved to New York in 2016, it had been in the works for about 18 months previous. So what I used to do is I used to come to New York every 4 weeks for about 10 days. And I found what worked for me is to travel during the day, a day flight. I load up my iPad with, I download it with films or programs from Netflix. So as soon as I get on the plane, I switch my watch to the time of my destination. I put in my earphones and I just watch the Netflix on, even before the plane sets off, I'm watching the Netflix until we land. And I just make sure there are programs that I really, really like. So I don't read, I don't sleep, I just watch the film. And I don't think of the time. I'm not like thinking, oh, it will be 2 o'clock in whatever time. And I found that really worked for me. So that's why it's a day flight. So I arrive there in the evening, it will be the night. And I just don't think about it, coming back the same thing. And I found that works for me. That's why I was able to do it every 8 weeks, like clockwork since 2016 until March. In fact, I was in London when the president added the UK to, because initially he banned Europe and then he added London on a Saturday. I was meant to leave on a Tuesday. The ban was meant to start Monday midnight, so I had to get a flight the next day, and I've not been back since.
Oh wow! So, are you majority based in New York? In New York, is that
No,
why you had
I
to?
live in New, I live in,
You
I
live
live
in
in
New York.
New, I live in New York, but as I said, because I have an atelier there, I went back. So a lot of people didn't even know I had moved because I just went. I needed my clients to realize it doesn't matter where I am because I see you by appointment. And because I come every 8 weeks, I'll just ensure the time I fix for you to come to see me will coincide with when I'm there. So it doesn't
Wow.
matter that I'm not based in, it just made
Yeah.
no difference. What happened at that time was I did all the patterns here in New York, but the dresses were made in London. I have a machinist in London so that when you come for your final fitting, even though 99, as I said, 99.9% nothing needs to be done, but just in case something needs to be done, I can take it to the machinist that made it and we can fix it. And also I'm not importing and exporting dresses, putting them in like my suitcase or whatever. And I know there will be a time when I'll be able to come back again. But once my ready-to-wear collection is up, then, I'll get a few select salons in London and also in the UK, and then just direct my clients. If you don't want couture, well, this is an alternative, and the price point will also will reflect that. So it will
Oh,
be
that's so.
more. It will be open to a wider audience of people that absolutely love what I do, but really can't afford it, and I respect that. I think you should know what your budget is and stick to it because you're setting up home and things move on after the wedding, so don't go above what you plan.
No, that's so good. That's such an amazing incentive as well for brides. And you mentioned obviously that your mum is one of your biggest inspirations. And I just wondered, do you have any designers that have inspired your craft at all?
Okay, so when I was young, even before I knew that maybe my parents would allow me to be a designer, but I just had a fascination for design. And then I used to pour over encyclopedias. Again, this was before the internet. And I love designs like Dior, Balenciaga, Givenchy, from what's called the new look. So this was late 40s, early 50s. That's where you have this, I think that's where my love for the classical hourglass figure came. But what I also realized was there's a lot going on inside the dresses that nobody sees, and you think, my gosh, it takes hours and hours to create this thing that no one's going to see, but that's what makes the dress look fantastic on the outside. All this internal structure is almost like engineering inside, and I was really fascinated with that, and I knew that if I made dresses, I wanted my dresses to be like that. Now, contemporary designs, I was also inspired by Bruce Oldfield, Joe Casely-Hayford, and Patrick Kelly. What those three people have in common is that they are Black men. Bruce Oldfield was a mixed-race man in the UK, brought up in an orphanage, and ended up making dresses for Princess Diana and all sorts of celebrities. And Joe Casely-Hayford, originally from Ghana, he did quite a lot of men's wear, but again, they were male designers. And I thought, well, if they could do it, this is somebody that looks like me and is tremendously successful. So I felt if they can do it, so can I. And it just goes to prove that, like when it comes to stuff like racism, sometimes in fashion, if your product is desirable, even the people wearing it might hate you personally or might not respect you, but if they like the product enough, that's not the barrier for them to get it. So it's just important for you to produce fantastic work, and the world is your oyster. So I was inspired by those. I was also inspired by Vera Wang, because Vera Wang and a designer called Amsala was an Ethiopian, maybe she knows. She was a Black designer, very successful in the US, but their dresses were on the simple side, but deceptively so, because the simpler a design is, the more flaws are exposed. So if it's not perfect, if you have lots of frou-frou, it's easy to cover up multitudes of sins. And that's why my dresses have this classic clean line, because I have mastered lots of methods and experience in crafting a pattern, and I want to show that off, and you show it off in simplicity, but as I said, it's deceptively simple, and there's lots of things maybe happening on the inside that then create this amazing exterior. So I've had different people, designers, that inspired me over a period of time. When I was young, when I knew I was going to be a designer, but needed to be able to see that, okay, this can be successful. And then even in business, people that are doing styles that I like.
Yeah, because representation is so important. And I mean, I definitely think that in the last couple of months, given everything that's happened in America, I think the whole world is kind of watching and understanding,
Absolutely.
what some of the struggles are and why representation is so important. And you mentioned a designer that inspired you, and he designed for royalty, but I was just going to point out, I mean, you've designed for royalty as well. I've seen that you've designed for Lady Janet Boateng as an example, and you've got a number of different celebrities that you've designed dresses for.
Yes, I have. Now, I have done that, and I've also designed dresses for both Lady Janet Boateng's daughter's weddings, which was absolutely an honor, because that's how I got to go to the balcony of the House of Lords, where one of the receptions took place, and also St. Margaret's Church, which is next to Westminster Abbey, and also the crypt underneath Westminster Abbey, which one of the daughters got married at.
Wow.
But even though I've also done dresses for Ghanaian royalty and Nigerian royalty. But I have to tell you that for me, each client is the same. My priority is to deliver the best I can for a client that has paid me what I feel I am worth. The downside of maybe designing for like top-notch celebrities is that sometimes you have to either do it for free, or you have to, lower your price because of the publicity around it. But very early on, I thought, give me the money. Let me, I just want a client that values what I do, not thinks they're doing me a favor. So other designers have a different thinking, but you know, I do me. I have always done that. You know, is what's going to make me happy? What do I want to do? Because X is doing that doesn't mean I should. And also I design dresses for people that don't want me to talk about it, which is fine. Again, as long as you're paying me what I'm worth, then I'm happy with that. I don't have to use it, because what happens is their friends or the people in their circle know, okay, this guy is discreet. He's not going to use us for publicity, and we feel sort of safe with him. Even though it kills me and I want to show it off, but I respect people's privacy. In fact, one person I made a dress for was the private secretary of Prince Charles for the daughter, for the marriage of Prince William to Catherine. And I made this dress for her, but I couldn't talk about it. She said her job was a bit sensitive, you know, and I couldn't talk about that. After the wedding, maybe I could, but she wasn't really happy, so I really didn't. But because of that, she then got me into a reception in St. James's Palace, and I met Prince Charles and one African outfit. So obviously he shakes everybody's hand. They're very good at it. But because of my outfit, he stopped and we actually had a chat. And I then told him that, first of all, I explained what it was. It was a modern version of a Nigerian Buba and Shokoto. And that I also made the dress his press secretary wore to his son's wedding. So we had a conversation. But that was, the point I bring this up is that sometimes you get rewarded for discretion. So I might not have a list of names I can lean, but I know what I've done. And that's enough for me, you know.
That's brilliant. And how was Prince Charles? Like, how did you find him?
He was much smaller than I thought he would be, but then I'm quite a tall man. But he had the fact that he didn't talk to everybody, but he talked to quite a few people, and you can hear what he's saying before, but he had something different to say to everybody. So I was very impressed with that. That this man has met so many people, he must be really bored and just be saying, "Oh, the weather is nice." But no, he had an intelligent conversation, and he's looking at you in the eye, and yeah, it was great.
That's really good. And then I just have one final question before I move to the feed, because I can see that people have been commenting throughout.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you, Yemi, I mean, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would tell my younger self that stick to your guns, keep your eye on the prize, where you want to go, and don't get distracted, because there was a time when I almost, I have a style which, as I said to you, is quite classic. It's quite on the scale more simple than extravagant. But then I can design anything. I can design something that, floats up in the air and has bells and whistles, but that is not my core aesthetic. And there was a time when I almost felt I should maybe bow to how people would want me to be. And then I see people like Sal that stick to the aesthetic, and I think, well, it is okay to stick to aesthetic. So what I'll say to my younger self is just do you. Just as long as you are doing your best, it doesn't really matter what other people might say, because you've only got one life, so just lead your life properly, but just make sure you're producing as much perfection as you can. That's what I'd say, and you'll be okay.
That's brilliant. That's so good, because I think it's so important sometimes to kind of look back on your journey and think, okay, what would I do differently if I would do anything differently, and actually what have I learned? And it sounds like you've gone so far that you actually know that you've stuck to your principles. So I think that's really good.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
One more thing is this is just my longevity, is because I realized you have to, even though I have my core aesthetic, but you have to keep renewing yourself. So when I started, there was no internet, there was no social media, and all these things came up. And I could have just thought, oh my God, no, this is too much, I can't cope. But no, with each thing that comes up, even though I might not know or I might not figure it out, I'll hop on it and then I'll figure it out and I'll try and do it as best as I can. And that's what I've done with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram. I've even got a TikTok chat. I'm still trying to figure out TikTok, so don't go and look for me because there'll be nothing there. But I realize you have to do it. The same thing with like the Zoom and the, you know, you just have to keep up with it to remain fresh. And even with my designs, I'm constantly trying to raise the bar, to renew, to remain relevant, because, you know, as I'm growing older, my clientele is probably getting younger, and I have to keep up with that.
No, that's a really good point. That's such a good point. I mean, I've got one comment here that talks about really love the concept of thinking about the location of the dress will be in on the wedding day. I think that's so key.
Very important, very important. For example, if you're getting married in a castle, or you're getting married in an ultra modern minimalist hotel, you can't wear the same sort of dress for both venues. They call for totally different things. Or you're getting married in a church that has a very small aisle. There's no point in having one of those dresses with a really big skirt. You would literally be able to go past the aisle. So that's why I ask all these questions, and you want your dress to fit the environment of where you're getting married. Everything counts.
Such a good point. And I've got a question about what are your favorite fabrics to work with?
You know, it changes. I like structured fabrics like Zibeline and Marocaine, but that's for designs that have things that are meant to have like almost like an architectural feel to them. Maybe some sort of element that needs to stand up or just needs to be slightly stiff. But I also like tulle and lace. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of soft fabrics, because I want to have, you know, when you have a lot of control on the inside, it's quite stiff, but I want the outside to look almost ethereal and really soft and floaty. But beneath all that, there's still construction. It challenges me, and it also proves how much work goes into a dress. So when the people see the client wearing the dress, they think, well, we know this person, but how is she achieving this? It looks also soft and floaty. That's great. I love that. It just proves my point that I'm able to create some engineering underneath that, just between me and my client. It's like a secret. So to answer the question, it just changes. The design would lead to the fabric.
And then I've got another question, which is, I think this is after you talked about, you know, wedding dresses and trying them on. So obviously, different bridal shops now want people to be trying on different dresses. Someone's asked, how do you navigate your options? As you may have an idea in your mind, but then when you're trying things on, it could look different. So do you advise based on shape, for example?
Yes, so that is a very, very good question. And that's why up until now, because I don't have tons of dresses for people to try on, I actually used to encourage my brides to go to a place and try different things. But that's where I come in, because from my experience dealing with body shapes, I'm able to advise on what would suit. But I need to know what ideas they had. You know, if you had a dress you were fixated on and you thought, oh, I'd love to wear this. And then I think, well, your idea and your body shape do not match. There are some ways, just by tweaking proportions, you can have the dress you want. But if you went out to a shop, it probably wouldn't fit or it wouldn't suit. But just by maybe, for example, if you want to have like a fishtail mermaid dress and you're slightly short, well, if flare came from your knee, it will probably make you look even shorter. But just by raising the flare to be almost in between the widest point of your hips and your knee, it still has a mermaid shape, but the skirt is lifted higher, so you have more length, things like that. Or, you know, so in terms of having an apple shape or having a pear shape, there are some things that you see some diagrams that you can only wear this, you can only wear that. But if your dress is made for you, that's one of the advantages of having a bespoke dress made. All those things can be taken into consideration. But if not, then I can say, well, if you're going to have to buy a dress that really can't be altered, this is the best one to go for. But if I know what your idea was, I may go, yeah, that's great. Or maybe you can, this is a better idea. But I always try and come up with a solution as opposed to, oh my God, what are you thinking? And then leave it at that. No, it's maybe this might be better. Have you thought of this? And I will show them the design. So, you know, because that's one thing that helps me, the fact I can draw really well. So when I do a sketch, all the seams, everything is there. It's not one of the squiggles. I mean, they hated me in fashion school because they said, no, your sketches are too rigid, but I knew what I was doing. I want my bride or my client to totally understand my sketch and not imagine it, you know, so it's like, oh, I didn't think it would be like that.
Right.
Well, that's a good question. So that's the problem with not being able to try dresses on, but that's just the reality, and that shouldn't stop you.
And I guess because you have the consultation, so you mentioned that, I mean, during lockdown, you'd have the tripod so you could see the person's body shape. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you have a bride who maybe knows, I want a Kosibah gown, but maybe doesn't necessarily know what would suit her body shape, would you take her through options during that consultation?
Yeah, that's part of the consultation. I mean, I do that anyway. So that even I said, if you have a definite idea, you have no idea at all, we still come to the same point. If you have no idea at all, with the questions I ask you, that's where the expertise comes in. I would take all those elements and I'd formulate them into a design. If you have a particular idea of what you want, I keep that at the back of my mind, but I'm also thinking what is going to suit you. So if one aspect doesn't suit you, I will show you, I think this might be better, because what I want is, what can I do to enhance the figure and to make this person look as best as I can. And you know, it's almost like a case of just trust me, but because I'm showing you examples of what I've sketched, and normally I'll do maybe 3 or 4 so that we can narrow it down. More than that is a bit overwhelming and people just get confused. But if you do 3 or 4 designs and then you just get all the elements into one. So even if it's a dress that looks similar to what I'd done before, each bride gets something completely unique, because they're a unique person. You know, your shape, your wedding, it's just unique to you. And then you have a dress that nobody else has.
That's fantastic. Yemi, I've just realised, so the live will end shortly because I think it deletes after an hour.
Yep. Okay,
but I just wanted to really I just wanted to quickly wrap up and thank you, because this has been such an insightful conversation, and I would hate for this to be deleted because we've talked about so many amazing things. But guys, thank you so much for joining us today on the lockdown series. You have seen me with Yemi Kosibah. I've pinned the comment. So after this chat, I'd love it if you could go and have a look at Yemi's profile and just look at his work. I know a lot of you know his work already, which is why you're tuned in. But if you haven't seen Yemi's work, please go to his profile now and look out for his new collection that will be launching soon. It's
been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yemi. The pleasure's been all mine. Thank you. Thanks all. Take care until next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.